Hey, David Wood here, and welcome to My Extra Mile. Our comment winner today is Jen Mantha. She said, great show, love it, so many great points. And she's talking about my show where I talked about decluttering the mind, decluttering our life, and a 5-minute exercise that will radically change your life. So enjoy that show. Today's show is all about adaptability. You know, in today's world, with what's going on, our ability to adapt, not just to things that go well or to positive change, but to anything that happens, discovering and utilizing the skill. I like to think of it as a superpower of supreme adaptability. Listen to the show and you're going to pick up some amazing tips that will really allow you to navigate life in such an elegant, beautiful and flowing way. So enjoy the show. Don't forget, just subscribe, get involved with the conversation. Don't forget to comment, and we'll definitely see you on the other side. Hey, David Wood here, and another solo show. It's so funny because I was recording and I was probably, 15 minutes into the recording and my phone rang. And, and it's funny because what I was talking about, and I'll go back into it for you, was, what the theme of the show is, which is really about adaptability. I think it's one of my superpowers is that I'm extremely adaptable. And I'm talking about really, maybe 45 seconds ago, as I'm in the, 30 minutes into a recording, 20 minutes in, somewhere like that, the phone rings and the recording stops. So I start over. So I'm starting right over. But you see this look on my face. It's adaptability, understanding that, I was there. I thought it was great. I was loving what I was laying down. It felt very, very, it felt on point. It felt natural. It felt like I was in my body. And guess what? It didn't work out. And so adapting means that, instead of being, and I was a little frustrated for about, 3 seconds. Oh, crap. No, right? And then it's like, oh, no, it's done. Boop, 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 start again, boom. Put it on airplane mode. That's my big lesson. So now my camera, which is actually my phone, is now on airplane mode so that hopefully no interruptions can occur. So that being said, so I want to talk about adaptability and, and why I believe it's one of the great superpowers that with practice, every single person listening right now, and really you want to listen. I know that because this is on YouTube and some of you, don't have a lot of time, you start listening and then turn it. I can see the average time that people listen. But I really want you to if you are trapped in a world where expectations, you have expectations. If things don't go the way you want and it pushes you off the rails or it gets you angry or upset or frustrated or withdrawn or whatever those energies are, then there's something really here to listen to. And, what I was sharing before, which I'll share it again because I think it's a great story. What was that last year? Or if you go on my social media, you'll find the story. But maybe 2 summers ago now. I was at a concert downtown with my girlfriend Asta, and there was a lot of lightning around, and the lightning started to hit, and people are running to hide under trees. So again, I'm not sure whether I grew up on a different planet, but one of the things I learned as a kid was don't hide under trees when there's lightning, right? So I'm thinking we got to get out of here. So we actually just start wandering down, and we walk into a local bar, and the concert's just getting blown away, right? And suddenly I get a phone call. Now, normally if I'm on a date, I'm not going to answer the phone, but the guy on the phone is a friend of mine who happens to be a great friend of Asta's as well. So I thought, well, I'll answer, because they're friends. And I say, Wolf, what's up? He says, Dave, your house is on fire. I said, what? So my house is on fire. There's fire brigades there. Your whole house is on fire. Now, if you look at the lake, I'll give you a quick look, right? See, the lake is right here, look. And you see it, he's across in that bay over there. So he's 2 kilometers away looking up. And by the way, from his vantage point, the whole house is on fire. Now, you'll hear the end of the story, what happens, but I'm standing in a bar, just learned that my house is on fire. So I have lots of choices, anger, frustration, oh my God, panic, All these different energies could be there. But I realized the fire brigade's here, house is on fire, you know, what can I do? You know, so I actually called the bartender and said, excuse me, I said, can I get 2 shots of tequila? So I looked at Astor and I said, cheers, let's toast the house. I said, I just heard it's on fire. Don't know what's going to be like, whether there's going to be any house there when we get back. But we sipped our tequila, right? Because I thought, you know what? I said, we weren't far away. I mean, really, it's probably about, 10 minutes away. And so we end up driving back slowly. We get here, the fire brigade are here. All my neighbors are out helping, so I jump in, and, and the root system under the ground was all on fire. So we're having to dig down and put the roots out, and then it kept flaring up and down. So it took about 4 or 5 hours, and then it even flared up the next day. And so, so finally I said to all the neighbors, I said, why don't we go in the garden? I've got a bar outside by the pool, that's it. And so I started serving everyone drinks. We had this great night. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. One of my neighbors right across the street is a pastor, a priest, or whatever you call it, pastor priest. And one's a miner, and the miner's got a potty mouth, and the pastor has these 2 kids there. And anyway, 3 o'clock in the morning, everyone's in the pool, we're all laughing, and everyone's accepting each other. It was great. A week later, I went golfing with the guy, the logger that I'd never met before. But that was a real story, and my reaction was the superpower, the adapting, because in the moment I heard, I had to make some choices. And the choice was, well, if the house is not there, what am I going to do? What am I going to feel? How do I want to feel, right? Am I so attached to the house that, that my life's going to change or end? Or, I do have insurance, and if you don't, I do recommend having insurance. But if you don't, that's one of the things. That's one of the chances you take if you don't have insurance. But, I'm just like, okay. But what I've learned, the superpower of adaptability is, if the house had completely gone, which obviously you can see it's not, right here, then I would have, a new chapter would have opened up. Something would have opened up, whether I rebuilt on this lot or whether, I took the money and started something else or went somewhere else or travel. I mean, I don't know. But all I've learned when I backpacked, people say, oh, you've got the money, you can afford this. No, this muscle was born when I was traveling around the world, backpacking with no money. This wasn't a muscle I grew because I can afford to lose a house. No one can afford to lose a house and all the possessions you have, but I'm willing to accept if it happens to adapt to the situation, not struggle wishing it hadn't happened, because I can't make that. If it had all gone, it was gone. So my energy and how I felt and how I drove up the road slowly and just with the accepting heart of, hey, if it's gone, it's gone. I knew I can handle it because I've been in enough situations where I've learned that even the worst thing that can possibly happen, when we flow into it, and even, you look back 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years later, you think, oh my God, that was the best thing that ever happened. And it's interesting because we had the crazy fires here. I think it was in 2001, I think it was, where I think it was 300 or 400 homes were burnt down to the ground. And one of my friends, Rick, he lost his house. And I said to him at that point, and it completely burned to the ground, right? I said, Rick, one day you're going to look back and you're going to say, this is the best thing that ever happened. And he was like, at that moment, because, he hadn't grown this muscle, of course, that didn't land so well on him. But I remember about 5 years later, I met him, and he says, that was the best thing that ever happened. He said, our cupboards had so much crap in it, stuff that we hadn't used in years. I said, the house wasn't really designed for the family we had. We didn't have a pool. He said, when I got the insurance money, I rebuilt and I designed it perfectly for our family. We got rid of all the stuff that was cluttering all the closets. And it was just it was like a fresh start, he said, right? So anyway, what had happened was the lightning had struck that tree right there. You see that tree there? There's 2 trees side by side. And if you look at the bottom, they are completely frazzled now. They haven't died, which is amazing. So that's what happened. The lightning hit the tree. From where Wolf was sitting looking up, the whole mountain was on fire, and it looked like the house was on fire. That's what was really happening. So that idea about adaptability is a kind of one story. But what I really want to sort of talk to you about is look at what's happening right now. I mean, we've got COVID. And again, whether you're listening to this in a year from now and COVID's all gone, I hope this is still going to be topical. Is right? There are some people right now who feel, that the everything's changed, and the world has changed, Well, the world's always changing. I mean, gosh, think about the world my father and mother grew up in. My dad's 92 this year, right? I mean, you think the world, I mean, he grew up in the East End of London. I mean, I remember what it was like when I grew up. I mean, the world has completely changed, transformed. I mean, back then, beating children was a national sport in England, right? Any of you British people understand that. Teachers would pick you up by the hair and throw you across a classroom, or they'd take the wooden chalkboard and they'd throw it right at your head. And if you bled, they would laugh. That would be like, hey, you know, there'd be a celebration in the class because they hit you full in the head with a wooden thing and you were bleeding. And if you went home and told your parents about it, then they would beat you as well for being a baby. It would be like, oh yeah, I'll give you something to cry for, right? So it's just the world we grew up in. But yeah, the world's changed, but adapting to the world that is not about holding on to what was. It's like, you know, adapting to what is right now. How is the world? And so I just got back from a month in Greece because, you know, everyone's talking about, oh, I can't travel. And I'm like, I talked to a young girl 3 days ago, and she's like, yeah, I know, it's a shame. I had these plans to travel. I was on the golf course, right? And she's like, oh yeah, I can't travel. And I'm like, really? I said, what makes you say that? I said, I just got back from Greece. And obviously, you know, Canadians can travel to certain countries. There's lots of countries opening up. Yeah, but I said, what do you mean, but? I said, it's just a great time to travel. Now, I mean, I was just up there, you know, on the driving range standing there, and she was in one of those little carts, you know, one of the girls that go around, you know, and I know her from the last couple of seasons playing on this golf course. But I really sort of looked at her and said, look, you know, it's a perfect time to travel. When we were in Greece, in Astronite, we had such an amazing time because there was no tourists, or there were a few tourists. Everything was easy and flowing, and even the locals were enjoying the peace, you know, and the quiet and the tranquility. I mean, obviously, it was a little harder financially, but there was the world is constantly in flux and change. You know, in all parts of the world, there's, you know, I mean, we know there's, like in the South right now, there's been some hurricanes, you know, the forest fires or the fires in Australia, or earthquakes, or whatever they are, volcanic eruptions. That's constantly putting the planet in a point of flux. Much like if my house had burned down during what we thought was my house on fire, yeah, my life would definitely be up for change because the house I was living in is completely gone and all my crap is gone too, right? But the superpower of extreme adaptability is that, again, and in the beginning, you can practice with small things. It doesn't have to be massive. You know, when something breaks, you know, or someone smashes into your car, or whatever that is, it's just the ability to accept. I think that's the great word. And again, I haven't written anything down. I'm not following any notes. I just know that I'm so passionate about this particular subject, like many of the things I'll ever teach you on here, is that I'm so passionate that to push record and just talk about this is so natural. Excuse me, a little burpee here. All right. And so, you know, our ability to adapt to what's really happening versus holding on to what we wish was happening. You know, we wish was, and again, we can look at it in all extremes, you know, and I'll talk about this just briefly because I love this subject. Most people are afraid to talk about it, but let's talk about death, right? You know, every single person who's watching right now, we're all going to die. What is not always the truth is not everyone's going to live fully because of the fears they have about what's, you know, and if you understand the word fear, I talk about it all the time, the anticipation of pain. So a lot of people are afraid to live, right? But then they act so, you know, I mean, when people do pass, it's almost like a shock. and you know, there are people, and I just think that we have the ability, again, to adapt. And I was recently asked, when I say recently, by the way, because of how I live in the moment, this is probably 5 years ago. But so when I say recently, 5 years ago, I say a few days ago I was golfing, that could have been 3 weeks ago, who knows? But it's just because of my brain. I feel like it was just yesterday. But I was asked to MC a funeral of a young guy, 26, who was 3 weeks away or 2 weeks away from his wedding. And he died on the stag trip, right? And he drowned, you know. And it's one of those things where, you know, the reason they asked me is because, you know, his wife or his fiance didn't want it to be, she wanted to celebrate the life that he had led. those 26 years, and he was amazing. Rene, he's just a beautiful soul, great heart. Yeah. And the idea is that, we don't know how long the journey's going to last. But the idea that, I walk around, I've got two boys, two sons, I have no idea when my clock's out or their clock's out. But for sure, my ability to adapt to what happens when it happens, including that extreme. I'm using that as an extreme because for a lot of people, it's like, they just don't move on. But it's the only thing that, or one of the few things that we all have in common is born, and we are going to pass, and some are going to be young, and some are going to be old, and some are going to be super old, and some are going to have dementia, and some are going to have all these different things. I understand it's tough, but it's just a reality of what is versus what I wish was. I hope I live to 120 and I'm healthy and I have my faculties and I don't need to wear glasses, which is kind of new for me, right? So when we look at adaptability, it's not just, the superpower and the way to cultivate it is to practice with small things. And again, when we look at expectation and we look at, the way we think it can be or should be, and then when it doesn't line up, it's like if you go on vacation and the hotel's crappy, or, the food isn't good, or all these different things that can occur. We can get seduced into, resisting what's happening and wishing it was different. And in that moment, what we do is we take ourselves completely out of living, and we're in this, regret, or we're in this, anger, or we're in this emotion that is not serving us, and because things aren't living up to the expectations that we have. So what if we can develop this supreme adaptability so that whatever happens, we know that if it has happened, guess what? This is a great thing. If it's happened, then that's how we know. If someone just hit in the back of our car, jumping out and getting angry, as if you've never, ever made a mistake in a car. I love that. People are like, giving the bird and all that kind of shit. I'm like, guy, I make so many mistakes when I drive. I've driven with my knee, while looking in the back, frying eggs, whatever it is. But so when someone does, make a mistake driving, and typically I'll giggle or laugh and pass them in because I look at my own follies and say, oh my God, I have done that so many times. But when I see road rage and I see people really, really angry, and you can see on my last solo show, I talked about conflict resolution. And I talked about how, road rage is where you dehumanize someone. You have to be able to, get angry with a complete stranger you've never met just because of an action, right? So what kind of world do we want to live in? What kind of world where we can accept everything that's happening as it's happening, when it's happening, and understand this. Again, even the bad stuff. And you've said this. I mean, some of you have been through it, right? We can talk about, a separation from someone that you love, or, and when you look back, 6 years, 5 years, 2 years, 3 years later, you're just like, oh my God, I'm so glad that happened. And often, you end up as great friends, or you end up with a different kind of a relationship or whatever. But at the moment, and some people will carry that for years, and some people will adapt quite quickly, understanding that, there is this sort of ebb and flow to relationships. There's an ebb and flow to life, right? So I do teach sort of, I suppose, a formula around it, which, again, I wasn't planning on talking about right now. I was really wanting to talk about adaptability, but, an event occurs, and we're going to make up a story about it. And if we make up a certain negative story, then it becomes a huge problem. Same event, no story, no problem. And it's a very, very simple philosophy. So, whatever it is, that we can, and I'll give you another story here with my son Benny. He bought a car. It was $2,400, I think it was, and what I said to both the kids is I'd help them by buying half the car they chose. And Benny chose this, it was a I wish I could remember what kind of make it was, but it was sporty and it was fun. And the guy that owned it had all the original documents. It was in mint condition. It had the sunroof, and Ben's had a cassette player. So Ben's kind of into that retro stuff. He had a little hula dancer on there, and he'd be playing Hawaiian music through a cassette. But, he ends up phoning me one day, and he's like, Dad. I said, yeah. He said, Dad, I've had a car accident. And he's like really shocked. And I'm like, are you okay? He said, yeah. I said, okay, no worries. He said, no, Dad, I've had a really bad car accident. I said, I know, but you're okay. He says, yeah, I'm fine. I said, well, great, no worries. Oh, no worries. And he's like, Dad, I said, do you want me to come there? Is that what you want? Yeah, okay. I said, where are you? So he told me, and I go driving up, and I'm trying to find him on this road. I can't find him anywhere on this particular road. And I turn around, and I suddenly see in the trees, deep in the trees, a white T-shirt walking around. And I thought, oh shit, that's Ben. So I pull up, and I actually made a video. I kind of wandered through the trees, and I thought, holy crap. And I suddenly see his car way back in the trees, smashed into a tree. And I'm not going to exaggerate, but it's right on the edge of this cliff. And the cliff drops down, I don't know, 60 feet, 80 feet, whatever, right? All the mothers just gasped. Oh my God, he almost died, right? And so I woke up, and he's in shock, obviously. And, part of it is his favorite car, his only car, is gone. He can see it's kind of wrapped around a tree. But, of course, you're in shock. So I woke up, I said, nice park job, right? And so, luckily, we didn't call the police. I managed to get a tow truck out there. Even the tow truck driver looks at me and says, oh my God, I can't believe it, how deep he is, and that he didn't rip the roof off, because it looked like the car had gone through, and there was trees hanging different ways, and boom, and the fact he's on the edge of the cliff. So we drag him out, and what I do is I phone his mom, and I said, hey, Pammy, I said, Ben's been in a car accident. He's fine. I said, please don't say things like this when we get home. You're lucky to be alive. Oh my God, or any energy. I said, he's already sort of been in the accident. He's kind of learned his lesson. Let's just, make sure that we don't, right? Anyway, so I drive him home, and I took the video. So Ben walks in, and of course, he's still in shock, and he's still upset about the car. Tow truck driver brings the car and parks it in the driveway. And I said, Pam, come outside. I'll show you and I show her she said, oh my God, he's so lucky to be alive, right? I said, stop, don't do that, right? And so we go in, and she looks at him. She says, do you want to go to the hospital? And he says, no, I feel fine, really. And he says, do you want to get checked out? No, I feel fine. So we look at him and say, well, go to work then, because that's where you were going when he had the accident. And he said he didn't go too fast around a corner, but the truth is, he probably, well, I think 6 weeks later he told me the real truth. But yeah, he was probably going too fast around this corner. And so he went to work, right? Because, that he was in a car accident. Now, after that, days, weeks, months, years, I never once said, and I believe Pam was the same, be careful, because the accident, he already learned the lesson. And in fact, he said, I drive around corners now like a little old lady, or a little old man, right? I just go around really, really slowly, because he had learned that lesson. But, the accident was the accident. Our response to the accident, the story we made up around it was, what we could control. But then what happened a couple of days later, this is, again, this extreme adaptability. The car's a write-off, right? And so every time I pull up at the house, because he didn't have a car, so now we were kind of having to drive him around a little bit or lend him a car, he'd see the car, he's like, ugh. And after a couple of days, I look at him, I said, Ben, he says, what? I said, how long do you want to mourn for? He said, what do you mean? Well, I said, the car's gone. And, I want you to have this kind of sense is that, you can mourn for it, but then never think about it again. You learned your lesson. You understand what to do and what not to do. We don't need to tell you that. You got that all on your own. But how long do you want to mourn for? He said, well, Dad, how long do you think I should for a car? I said, well, for me, a couple of hours. It was already 2 days now. He's like, well, can I do 2 more days? I said, sure, yeah. I said, but then let it go completely. Never think about it again. It's not like I want you to keep going back and living that moment. Just use the experience when you're driving to say, okay, I understand what to do and what not to do, but the car's gone. You can't bring it back. There's no bringing it back, right? And what happened was this. This is the beauty of adaptability. So he did. He really let it go. And he didn't get rid of the car for a long time. It sat in Pam's driveway for a long time, if you're listening, Ben, right? But, of course, you would look at it and say, oh, I can't believe I wrote off my first car. But it led to a series of events, because now he didn't have a car, right? So if he kept that car, he may have stayed in Kelowna, right, where we live, this small town. As it happened, a few things transpired. And he ended up moving to Vancouver for a couple of years. And now he lives in Montreal, and he loves living in the city, and his life has opened up and blossomed. And so this is the way when I look at things, the car accident, I didn't know at the time, but I trust. I trust because there was already the accident. The car's already a write-off. That this thing is meant to be gone. How do I know? Because it's gone. It's completely gone. It no longer exists, right? The car's gone. But because of that, there was this series of events. Again, first that led him to go to school in Vancouver, which he wasn't necessarily planning, right? And then, and guess what? There was another incident when he went to buy, because he worked as a pizza guy. He did buy another little old car, but really kind of crappy, not one he was in love with, just to get around with. And he borrowed his mum's van, I think, actually. But then he went to buy a car, and the guy at the car lot was a complete idiot to him. And I couldn't be there when he was there, but he was going down. He found a car. He was going to go pay for it. He had the cash. And Ben called me. He said, the guy's being so weird. He won't let me go and get the inspection done on the car. And I had a friend downtown. I said, Ralph, any chance you could pop around and just check on Ben? So Ralph calls me. He says, the guy's being a real dick. He says, I wouldn't buy the car. So I phoned Ben. I said, don't worry. Don't buy the car. So here's another incident, right? Same story, right? And you think, oh God, I had the money. I was there. Da 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 da. Blah blah blah. I can't believe it, right? Anyway, that was the moment. If he'd bought that car, he would never have gone to school in Vancouver, and he wouldn't be living in Vancouver right now, in Montreal right now. So the whole world opens up because of these things. But at the moment, it seems horrendous. But when we understand this theory or this philosophy that if things happen that seemingly are bad, that given some time as we look back, we can pinpoint with accuracy and say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that happened. And sometimes it takes years or a decade. You go, you'll see yourself in a situation you could sort of play all the way back to this one moment in time where you made a decision because of something that seemingly bad happened. So you turn left instead of right? And now you find yourself in this place, you say, oh. And we can do that with so many things. So again, my call to action to you, and I hope you've got this, is this ability to live in a world where when things happen, we accept them to happen. Now, I'm not saying you can't mourn. It's not that you can't be angry or pissed off, right? So, I mean, for a moment, but then you get to choose the mourning period. How long do you want to be angry, pissed off, or whatever it is? So again, for me, sometimes it's minutes, sometimes it's not at all. I just accept it. I actually like to act contrary to what people think I should do. So if something happens, it's like, don't worry about it. All good. It's fine. I accept immediately, immediate acceptance, immediate adaptability, adapt to what is happening, right? Got it? And so, the idea then is that, we get into this situation where we start to accept. We adapt quickly. We choose how long the mourning period is going to be, whatever it is, again, extremes, whatever it is, and we decide, okay, I'm going to mourn for 7 days. I'm going to mourn for 3 days. I'm going to mourn for a whole day. My car just got written off. I'm going to be pissed off and angry for 3 hours. Boom, boom, boom. But then with the mindset that if we're going to practice and live in the extreme adaptability world, it means that we're going to adapt to what is happening. And then when we do, what we're going to find is the magical stuff that really happens. When we do, boo, this whole other world seems to open up that's been waiting, and it's just there. But what I find is this is what happens with the people that can adapt. They get stuck. It's like something happens and they stay there for years. I was embezzled. Years later, I can't believe this guy embezzled $1 million. I lost everything. Yeah? So what? Adapt, learn, change. You've got those skills. Move them again. Go again. That could happen. Or stay stuck. Carry it around like a great big weight on your back, and it's just going to cunt you over and make you, miserable or angry or morose. And holding on to anger, by the way, is like drinking poison and expecting somebody else to die, right? That's what it's like. So, so there's this thing, right? The people who can adapt stay stuck. I hear it. Oh, you don't understand. My house burnt down. I get it. Oh, I'm almost at my battery's saying that it's low. So I'm going to end this. But so again, don't be stuck. Don't stay stuck. And if this goes off real quick. I'm going to say goodbye right now, just in case. I'm going to finish my point. But listen, thank you. Remember, these are the tiny things we can add into our arsenal and practice to live in a world where we feel that we can handle it and endure anything and adapt to what's really happening and staying unstuck. Right? And again, with the power to choose how long we want to be stuck in that moment and how quickly we want to exit it. For me, because I practice it so often, is that I exit typically immediately. And people are quite shocked. I can't believe you're not upset by that. Why? What possible good can I gain from being angry or upset or pissed off because it's already happened? I can't go back and change and wish it was different. It's always going to be the same. That car is always going to be wrapped around that tree. It's always going to be a write-off. So Ben's ability to adapt, move on, right? And what's interesting, when he moved to Vancouver, he bought a bike, and he hadn't had a bike that he had to lock because we live in a smaller town. And he locked it up, and he locked it wrong. And so he came out, and his wheel was locked to the bike lock thing, and the bike was gone. Brand new bike. He phones me up. He says, "Oh, Dad, should I go to the police? What should I do? Should I drive around?" I said, "Ben, just forget about it. You're in a big city. You're not going to find it. It's just a waste of energy. Put it down to, I'm going to learn now for the rest of my life how to lock up a bike. I know it costs you, a few $100, and I know it's a lot for a young student. I get all that, but guess what? Extreme adaptability it's gone." And guess what? And he started walking, and he started discovering the city through walking. And he still today he's in Montreal right now, loves walking. And he'll just go and get lost and walk through the cities, right? And if he'd get that bike, he may have been riding everywhere so fast that he's not interacting with people, not seeing things the same way. So again, my call to action, don't be stuck, right? If you're stuck right now on something that happened, let it go. Choose, and again, if you've been there for years, think, all right, I'm going to have one more day of mourning and pissed off about it, and then I'm going to let it go and embrace what's waiting. Because as soon as you do, if you stay stuck, you can't get the good stuff. The magic won't come when you're stuck in something that happened years ago, or minutes ago, or weeks ago. You got to get unstuck and start moving, and then the magic's going to show up, and it always does. It always does, and it may not look like it right away. But the more you look back on what you wish was happening, the less you can see the magic that's in front of you. So, with that being said, the show's all about my extra mile. It's those little tiny things we can do incrementally. This is one little tiny adjustment. It's just noticing when you're stuck and adapting to what's really happening and embracing the magic that exists in this world. So, we'll see you on the other side.